The road is near its end for the Disney Plus Star Wars show Ahsoka, and what a ride it's been so far. Welcome to my review of episode 7 of Ahsoka as the journey beyond our galaxy. Well, it's not our galaxy, it's the journey beyond a galaxy far, far away to another galaxy far, far away has taken us to some reunions, some cool surprises, and an adventure that I think most of us were not expecting when this show was first announced. And we got 2 episodes left, starting with this one. And there are still a number of unanswered questions even coming out of this episode. So, if you remember, we left off where Ahsoka was on her way to the other galaxy with the space wells, and Thrawn is preparing for her arrival. But before we get to any of that, the opening scene is not the second scene after the opening, is at the New Republic, and Hera's there on Coruscant talking to the New Republic. They have the story where they bring up the end of Mando season 3 with Moff Gideon, and it seems like members of the Republic think that he was acting alone. You know, the whole thing with the Dark Council and all that, that's something that they don't even know about, right? And they basically have surmised that. So we have this nice little cameo from C-3PO, and he appears representing Leia about approving what Hera did. So basically, the spirit of Leia was still here, and it was a good way of doing fan service. You know, it was a nice cameo from 3PO. It didn't feel shoehorned in, and it was a good way to kind of give presence that Leia is involved without actually doing like a CGI Carrie Fisher or anything like that. So that was good stuff. So the meeting's adjourned, and the Chancellor is concerned about Thrawn's return and the problems it could cause, and Hera's very confident the galaxy must prepare for this. So the episode's called Dreams and Madness. The whales, so they go to they cut to the whales with Ahsoka, and she's training, and they have a pretty cool little thing here where we see Anakin in a pre-recorded hologram giving her training with different lightsaber forms. Good fan service here for hardcore fans of the various lightsaber forms. Again, they do fan service good here in that it's a little wink wink to the hardcore fans, showing things that have been in existence for many years but never really put on screen. But they don't overdo it. It doesn't feel cheap like what some of the J.J. Abrams Star Wars movies did. So the whales start to slow down, and then they're under attack from these like little balls in space, these space mines. I do want to put over the music here. The music, you know, I haven't talked too much about it, but the music for this show's been outstanding because it sort of is a bit of a hybrid of what they did with the Mandalorian music and with the John Williams Star Wars score, except it's also its own style, its own flavor. It definitely still feels like Star Wars, but it's not quite like what the original, 6 movies. Doesn't have that same sort of, really epic sound. But it's still epic, but in a different way. This one has more like sort of tribal drums, and it's good stuff. So Thrawn knows for sure now that Ahsoka's alive, and I like that he recognizes that she's dangerous and unpredictable, like Anakin. He wants to be one step ahead of her strategically. So this is a good use of Thrawn here, because if you know Thrawn from the books or from Rebels, you know that he gets put over as being this master strategist. And I remember during Rebels in, I think, season 3, it wasn't that impressive, whereas later as the show progressed, you saw more and more of it. Like early on, it wasn't that great. So we see a bit more of it here. So we have this sort of nice little peaceful scene where Ezra and Sabine are together, and she's catching him up on all the stuff he missed since the end of Rebels. The fall of the Empire, the quote-unquote death of Palpatine, etc. And we do find out a little bit more about Ezra and those people, how they took him in. Ahsoka, meanwhile, tries to reach out telepathically to Sabine. So it feels like the Force is kind of slowly growing inside of Sabine, but I like that she's just not turning into a Mary Sue, and she just doesn't just know stuff. Like, she's little by little getting better, and that was the sort of complaints people had about Rey. With this character, she's really slowly coming along. Some are going to complain about this too. I sort of understand it, but at the same time, it's written a lot better and a lot more, it's not as cheap, in my opinion. So Thrawn's grand idea as the strategist to go after Ezra and Sabine, not Ahsoka, because he knows that Ahsoka wants to save them. This is a good strategy, and it shows how cunning Thrawn is. It's not really about taking Ahsoka out before she makes it to the planet. It's more about getting them together and then seeing what they can do. So, and of course, Baylin's the one that's really in charge of all this. So we see Baylin and Shin, and Baylin discusses that his path is different from Shin's and he has his own goal. This was teased in the previous episode, and we still don't know what that goal is. So going into the finale next week, it's still a mystery about what his true intentions are. It doesn't appear like he's 100% aligned with Thrawn and with Morgan. It doesn't seem that way. He's got his own sort of, something's calling to him in the other galaxy. There's something else there, and I do wonder what they're going to be teasing to, if it's something in the sequel trilogy, which I kind of hope it's not, but if it is, or something for further down the road or for another season of Ahsoka. A lot of mysteries about where this is going, and I like it. There's been some leaks with these Disney shows, but with Ahsoka, I haven't seen that many, and that's okay. So Sabine and Ezra are attacked. There's a battle in the fields of the planet. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the Battle of Naboo from The Phantom Menace. Not quite like the same. It looked a bit better, obviously, with the advancements of technology. But the battle on the fields, you know, with the Gungans, it sort of brought that back. You know, they're not really like in space, or they're not like in a forest like an Endor. You know, it's more open. So Shin appears, and the fight goes to the little village. And then meanwhile, Ahsoka is about to land the ship, but instead she jumps out of the ship while it's moving. And a very swashbuckling adventure scene right there. And she goes face to face with Baylin. So we have our rematch between Ahsoka and Baylin. So they ignite their sabers, and here we go. Now, the choreography for this fight was really, really good. Really, really fun, because Baylin has to be extra careful with the fact that Ahsoka has two sabers. Totally different kind of training to fight somebody with two sabers. And meanwhile, speaking of sabers, they have this funny scene where Ezra does not want to use the lightsaber that was his, that he gave to Sabine. They have a little argument over it. He's like, the Force is my ally. And he does use the Force here, using like a martial arts hybrid style mixed with the Force. And he's attacked by Shin, but he uses his own dodging abilities and the Force to prevent himself from getting killed. He's pretty good with it. This is how I used to picture Yoda and the ancient Grand Masters of the Force using like the Force. Like I always thought when I was a kid, before the prequels came out, that the older Jedi didn't use lightsabers as much. They focused more on just the Force. They were so good with it that you didn't have to use it. And this is a good example of how you don't always need a lightsaber. That was cool, because he did pretty well. So during the fight with Ahsoka and Baylin, the ship fires on Baylin just as a distraction. He survives, but Ahsoka escapes to get to Ezra and Sabine's place. And this is where like the teams are coming after Ezra and Sabine. So there's a point here where actually Ezra uses the Force to save Sabine from a lightsaber slice by moving her out of the way. Very cool stuff. I like that stuff. I like that you can use the Force in different ways without even having the lightsaber. And that, again, it goes back to what I said about the Yoda thing. Like, that's something that I thought as a kid was the thing. So Ahsoka arrives to the battle and reunites with Ezra and Sabine. They all battle the stormtroopers. And I could have probably, if there's one complaint here, this could have gone a little bit longer. The episode did feel short, probably because they're building up to a longer finale. The episode definitely didn't hit like the last two did, in my opinion, last three. But if that's okay, because this is just, you know, we're about to see if they can stick the landing. They could have spent more time here, I thought, made it a bit more epic. The strategy that Thrawn's doing is he's planning on, and maybe I misunderstood this. If you think I did, leave a comment. And leave a like, too, if you're stopping by, man. I want to get the videos on this channel to get viewed by more people, so leave a like. So Thrawn's planning on leaving them there while they dip, probably back to the main galaxy, with the idea being that how are they going to get back to the main galaxy if the whales are gone? This could actually explain if they're stranded there, if Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra are stranded there. Maybe that's why they weren't involved in the sequel trilogy. I don't know. We still got some more years left before we get to the time of episode 7. So Ahsoka tells Shin to surrender her weapon and offers help, but she just leaves. The idea here being that Shin doesn't really have a master to follow now, and that Ahsoka's trying to tell her, like, not to be a lost soul. Kind of makes sense. Ahsoka hugs Ezra, and they have a really nice moment here. And the cliffhanger, well, there really isn't much of a cliffhanger. This is kind of where the episode ends, and it didn't have this dum-dum-dum, like, no, this is it. Now we go to episode 8, and the story here is, can Ahsoka, Ezra, and Sabine make it off of the other galaxy back to the main galaxy? Will they have to battle out with Thrawn? Will Morgan be involved? Are we going to see, the witches? Like, where is that going? I'm interested. Overall, this episode was a step down from the previous two, but still, it wasn't bad by any means. I would have done with some editing here and there, and they could have really, it could have been better. It could have been better without question. It could have been better. If you watch this episode, you didn't like it, I do understand. I really do. Even the Baylin Ahsoka fight could have been a bit longer, I feel. Not too much longer, maybe just a couple more minutes, but I wanted to see a bit more of that. But it looks like, because this fight didn't have a logical conclusion, or a definitive one, it feels like they're going to fight one more time, I would assume. I don't know what's going to happen with the passing of Ray Stevenson. Maybe he was going to survive and be a part of the Filoni movie or Ahsoka Season 2 if they do that. That may change, or maybe he is supposed to die. I mean, I don't know. Ray Stevenson passing away was a bummer, but he's done a phenomenal job on this show. I really like the Baylin character. The writing and his performance was really good. He's a very seasoned actor. So me and Laughingstock are going to get together to preview the finale of Ahsoka and give our predictions. Of course, feel free to give yours either in that video or in this one. And of course, let me know your thoughts. I'll talk to you on, very shortly, either tomorrow or the day after, about the Ahsoka episode 8 or the season finale, and see where we're going. Take care. See you soon.